Welcome to The Last Sales podcast where we invite guests on to discuss their careers through the sales stories that are most meaningful to them. Have This is episode one. I'm Richie Daigle, joined here by my co-host Kevin Hill. Kevin, how are you today?
I'm doing great and excited to be doing this new project with you, The Last Sell, where we learn about sales through stories. And I think as humans, we learn quite a bit through stories and fables and experiences from other people. So that's what we're going to stick to. We're going to stick to the sales stories and the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to that.
Exactly. So, I mean, if you're looking for top 10 tips to make $10 million next year guaranteed, or this sales strategy will never fail you, or this is the thing that I did to close a $100 billion mega deal with the superstars, or whatever, like this isn't your jam. But if you just want to hear stories, real life stories, true stories from people that have had pretty notable careers, authors, various sales figures, that's what we're here for. So I imagine there will be some learning opportunities along the way, some entertainment along the way, and hopefully it's worth your time. So, episode one, Will Jenkins, super exciting conversation. Really enjoyed this one, Kevin. Yeah, it was a cool start.
It was a cool start. MoLo Solutions is a new freight brokerage that popped into existence in 2017 and ran from $0 in gross revenue to $600 million in 4 short years before selling out to we're selling the business to Archibest in 2021, I think November 2021. And it's a great story all around. And Will's story is especially compelling from the early days of his sales career until now in his new venture journey that he's starting up right now in the freight and logistics space as well.
Yep, you're going to hear all about everything from door-to-door sales and selling knives early on in his career to a little bit about athletics and quite the competitive drive to be the best, to being on the brink of going under and out of business. You're going to hear everything in between and all the way, all the backstory that led to that big sale to ArcBest. So hope you enjoy episode one of The Last Sale, and let's jump into it. So yeah, I think that nitro cold brew is the equivalent to the coffee world as a double IPA is to the beer world. It's you have to be careful with them.
I can only have a sip of a little bit of nitro cold brew. Otherwise, I am entirely too energetic, and my heart is it could be a problem.
But it's there. So if there's a situation that requires next level will, you can access that place with a little sip of cold brew.
There's actually a really funny video. I'll try to get it from one of my reps. I was at my desk. This was maybe like year one and a half of MoLo, and I'd had too many cold brews, and I was just way too wired. And she's like, "You can't have anymore. Like that's just too much." It was pretty funny.
You got cut
I,
off like a bartender cutting someone off.
Correct. Correct.
I
No
don't
more.
think I've ever had a nitro cold brew. I don't think I have. I would probably be the same thing. I'd probably be out of control. But if it's anything like an IPA, I don't want any part of it because I don't. I do not like IPAs.
You just need to know that it's there, Kevin. Like if you ever need to go to that level, like 11, and what was it? The old movie, I can't remember the name of it. This is Spinal Tap. It's like this one goes to 11. Like that's your cold brew.
That's amazing.
But yeah, Will, thanks for joining us today. Here you are,
Thank you.
guest number one on The Last Sale. I hope you've prepared yourself spiritually, mentally, physically, emotionally. But yeah, why don't you introduce yourself for the listeners?
Yes, my name is Will Jenkins. I have been in sales the last 15 years of my life. Actually, the first job I ever had outside of doing random chores for my parents and cutting grass was a direct sales job selling Cutco kitchen cutlery, which we'll get into. And it shaped the career that I have today. I had the opportunity to co found a freight brokerage MoLo Solutions back in July of 2017. We grew that organization to about $615 million in revenue from 2017 until November of 2021. We sold the company to ArcBest, a publicly traded company based in Fort Smith, Arkansas, and it was an amazing opportunity to continue to grow the business. Um, I led different teams throughout my time there, but most recently, I spent my time helping to build out our shipper-facing sales group, which was a lot of fun. Most of my skill set is being in front of shippers and helping to teach and mentor reps. So I love doing that and had a chance to grow that group and really work through a ton of different interesting scenarios and learn the ins and outs of small sales cycles, large enterprise sales, things of that nature. I was with the organization for about 6.5 years as we built and scaled it. I left in May of 2023 to spend some time traveling and figuring out, what next business I wanted to go build, which brought me to the organization that I'm building right now. It's Journey. We are a transportation focused recruiting company and a sales training business. Launched officially 3 weeks ago. I've been working with a couple of clients the last few months before the official launch, just placing talent. And I have a passion for sales training in general. I think a lot of the reasons why I've been able to grow in my career has been, having good mentors and coaches. So I want to be able to be that person for, a lot of people in the space. And I've got a great team working with me and some incredible customers that have given us an opportunity to help, find talent and build their org. So it's been a lot of fun, and I appreciate the chance to be on here today.
We appreciate it, you coming on. Will, how do you define talent in freight brokerage?
So I think there are a lot of different things you want to take into account. First, it has to do with where your organization is and what kind of people you need to come in and grow. So you do a ton of research on all the different buckets that brokerages fall into, and so you've got a small or mid-sized brokerage that might need what you would call like a Swiss Army knife, right? So maybe they don't need a VP of sales that has all this strategy in place and knows how to build out the sales team. They need someone that understands carrier sales. They understand the nuances of customer sales. Maybe they get account management. They don't mind rolling their sleeves up. So to bring a full circle to what you're asking, how do you define talent? It kind of just depends on what the organization needs and what's a fit for their size. When I look at what we did at MoLo, one of the only reasons we were able to grow as quickly and successfully as we were just came down to us going and finding the best people to lead different departments and let them grow and do their thing. So I love the opportunity to be able to identify talent and help them find good organizations to grow within.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I have a sneaky suspicion, and I kind of know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask it anyways. But it sounds like there might be an athletic background where that might have led to recognizing talent, coaching talent, training talent, grinding and building and outworking. Um, yeah, these things all scream, I used to be an athlete somewhere.
Yes. So I had the opportunity to play college football at Illinois Wesleyan. I played a bunch of sports in high school, and my brother played football in college as well. So growing up watching college football, I was like, man, I'd love to get a chance to go play at some point. And my senior year, when I was figuring out where I wanted to go to school, I had a chance to, well, Wesleyan came and visited my school and, talked about it. There were a couple of kids from my high school that went there, so I knew them a little bit. And I got on campus and was like, man, it's a great school, really good football program. And to the point that you made about, the work ethic or seeing talent and grinding it out, I just have never been the best or most talented athlete, but I've never been afraid of the hard work and rolling my sleeves up. And I think that taught me a lot about how business works and specifically sales, because I got into sales at a young age. But that work ethic transitioned really or translated from football and all the other sports I played to sales. And if you're willing to put the work in and kind of persist when you're not good, because most of the time when you start, you're no good. Honestly, I was pretty terrible at football my freshman year, and I got a chance to play in college. I played 4 years. It was sweet. If I had allowed those challenges to, dissuade me, I wouldn't have had a chance to have a really cool career and a chance to learn the lessons that brought me to where I am today. So big fan of the things that athletics or really just like extracurricular activities teach you. Like a lot of times you start a new skill, you stink, and you have to persist before you get any good. So football taught me a lot of that.
So I don't know if you know, Richie played baseball, minor league baseball. So at two athletes there,
Nice.
I played junior varsity high school baseball. I think I was about $120 whenever I was 18 and graduated. But one of the things that when you're not the most physically, intimidating person, or the biggest, fastest, hardest throwing pitcher out there, is you really have to understand the game and understand the game, the strategy of the game, the little details and nuances of the game to find your competitive edge. And I think that's
Yes.
something that you did throughout your career, both in sports and also in sales, and something that Richie and I work on all the time as well.
Yeah. I actually wish I would have found watching film. This is an aside, but I wish I would have gotten into watching film more by like freshman or sophomore year of college. You watch film with the team and, you can put in hours outside of that. And so, I spent more time in the gym and, lifting and running and all this stuff. But my junior and senior year, watched a ton of film with the team. And you start to realize those tendencies, kind of alluding to what you mentioned. You got to be a student of the game, and it helps you sharpen so much because you see what someone's doing and you're like, okay, nine times out of 10, when they line up this way, they're running a slant. So, you're not guessing, but you've got a pretty good feel that down and distance situation and whatnot, you can apply that to any type of position as you're working on. Okay, here are the 10, here's what I see, here's what customers are typically looking for. Not a cookie cutter approach to everybody, but you can kind of get a feel for what people are looking for.
It's one of my favorite quotes is in the moment of truth, you won't rise to the level of your expectations, but you'll fall down to the level of your training and your preparedness, and I think that's you learn that all different types of ways in athletics. But quick question. I know you said you've been doing some traveling.
Yes.
Where is your favorite vacation spot? Kind of switching gears a little bit here, but where's your favorite? If you had to go one more vacation, where are you going?
I would say if I were looking for tropical beach style vacation, I would go Bali. I really enjoyed my time there. I went a couple of years ago and it was picturesque. I felt like I was in a postcard the entire time. It's really beautiful. And there are pockets of it that can be relatively touristy, but it still seems pretty authentic and just like untouched. It's pretty sweet. And then if I were looking for more of a history, see a bunch of stuff, type vacation spot, I probably would go somewhere in Europe. I spent a lot of time in Europe this summer, and so I really enjoyed Sweden and Norway. I've spent time in Italy before, and there's just so much history and so many things that are old, 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 and it's just so cool to see them. I think it would depend on the vibe for the vacay, but beach, tropical. I loved Bali. I also loved Costa Rica too. It's pretty cool. But if I wanted to see a lot of history, I love to just go to like old cities and see museums and cathedrals and stuff like that.
Second question. It might be cold brew, but what's your favorite beverage? You get one more beverage to take with you to either the beach or into one of these cities. What are you drinking?
Okay, I would go non-alcoholic. I would go a cold brew or a really good lavender latte. And the reason is I used to spend some time in SoCal with a couple buddies in Newport Beach. And there was a coffee shop that had just the best lavender latte in the world. So anytime I have a lavender latte, it just reminds me of like spending time with friends in SoCal. So love a good, good cold brew, good latte. And then I like tequila quite a bit. It's my drink of choice if I'm on a beach or hanging out. So just a good tequila on the rocks. Don't need to mix it. Just a nice smooth tequila.
So, hate to tell you this, or maybe it's good news, maybe it's bad news, but you're old now. You're really old, and you're wrinkly, and you're on a beach in Bali. But something's happened. I don't know what it is about this beach. There's tequila coming out of the sand. There's tequila bars behind you. Everybody's walking around with tequila. There's tequila shots like washing up in the waves. And this beach is weird because it just so happens to be like a 10-minute walk away from uh, downtown Vienna or name your European city. It's just right
Okay.
there. And in this city, there's just lavender lattes everywhere. They're just pouring
Wow.
out of every single storefront. And this is where you're at. And you're retired. Your career's over. And you're looking back over, you're having just a moment there on the beach and just kind of reflecting over your career. What was the last thing you ever sold?
I love this question. you set an incredible stage, and I feel like I am on this fictitious beach with lavender latte and tequila. I would say it probably would be a portion of a real estate portfolio. So I am fascinated by real estate because they're not making any more land. And if you can find a way to build a strong portfolio and in your long term thinking, it's a really good way to build wealth and put yourself in a good financial position. So I think that would be really cool, whether it be small single family or multifamily residential type stuff. I don't know that I'm interested in the commercial side, but maybe, it could be cool to get into. But I just think real estate's super fascinating. So would love to be on that beach talking about exiting a portfolio to, whoever happens to swoop it up.
So you're on this beach, you're thinking through about selling this big real estate portfolio or a portion of it to afford this wonderful experience with tequila and lavender lattes and rearranging earth and so forth. Looking back to the beginning, what was the first sale that you ever remember making?
The first sale is two parts. So I was 18 years old. I got a call from a company that was looking for new sales reps, and the company was Vector Marketing, and they sell Cutco kitchen cutlery. And this is a direct sales job. They don't give you leads. You build up your book of business. You got a cold call, go out there and make it happen. So the first sale occurred after the interview when I had to convince my parents to write me a check for $140 for the down payment for the sample set. And I still have the sample set. It's at my mom's house. It comes in this blue bag. And then they give you like 4 or 5 knives, a peeler, a set of scissors, and that's what you use to demonstrate the cutlery. And it was so funny. I was at my mom's house, and she's like, "Huh, do you want this stuff, honey?" And she pulls out the bag. I'm like, "Oh my God, it's my sample set." Because I have so much Cutco, but I forgot about the sample set. I've gotten so much over the years. And so my first sale was convincing my mom and pops to write me a check to get the sample set. And this was followed by them saying, mostly my mom, "This job is really dumb. You should just get a regular 9 to 5 job." And I love both my mom and dad so much. They are the best mentors and coaches I've ever had. They've always been there to support me. But, they're protective over their kid, and they're like, "This job seems goofy. We don't know if you're going to do well," or whatever it might be. Not that they didn't have faith in me, but, they didn't know anything about Cutco or how it works. So I had to convince them to write that check and convince them not to try to make me quit. So started selling Cutco. This was like 5 days after high school graduation. I'm fresh. And you go through 3 days of training. They sit you down and you learn the ins and outs of each knife. And they start talking about what type of people you should call on. So day 2 of training, I'm cold calling, setting appointments. And I go, ideally, easiest to like hardest. So I'm like, let me call my aunt. I do an appointment with my aunt. And let me call, my other aunt and my best friend's mom. We're, set up all these appointments and stuff. And so the first sale that day was to my mom. It was my first practice appointment. And she still has it's known as a galley set in Cutco at home. And, she wrote a check and got my confidence booming. That first day I think I sold 5 for 6 that day and probably like 12 or $1,500 at Cutco. And I was like, this is sick. So it's pretty cool.
What's the economics behind that? How much is a set of cut code knives?
When I was selling, this was 2008 through 2011, the average sale was about $225. So that would be a combination of a few knives. It might be maybe a couple table knives and an accessory. It could be a vegetable knife and a couple other pieces. So the average sale was about $225. The sets back then, the largest set I think started at probably 1,900 or 2,500 bucks, and it had like every knife that they sold. And then you scaled down from there. The most common set that we sold was like $1,000 set wise, but the average order size was like 225 bucks back then.
And what's your commission off of that?
So my first 10 days, the way the commission works, it scales up from 10% to 50%. So from 0 to like 25 or 3,000 bucks, you make 10%. These are from what I remember. It's been so long. From probably 3 to 5, I feel like it was maybe 15 or 20%. 5 to like 7,500, it might have been like 30%. And then once you got above 10K, it was 40%. And then once you got up to 30,000 in sales, this is career sales, you make 50% of everything you sold. So my first 10 days, I am very competitive, as you may have noticed. And they were like, okay, well, here's the deal. If you sell $10,000 worth of Cutco, you can get this cool trip in this limo. You go with the region manager and we'll take you to Fogo de Show, and you get a dinner and there's all these knives that you can win. And in my head, I'm like, shoot, sign me up, right? If you're telling me that's what I got to go do, like, I'm going to do it. And I set 40 appointments with really a bunch of people that these were parents of kids I went to high school with. I cold called throughout my high school directory, and I made $2,000 in my first 10 days. And I was like, sales is for me. You can't tell me anything else. Like, this is where it is. It was sick.
Same, right? I mean, you get all the rewards, right? But you have to take the risks too, and I think that's where everyone gets protective of you and tries to talk you out of things, is because this perceived risk.
Totally.
Yep.
That might not be. What's the biggest sell you ever made? MoLo. You can't say selling MoLo.
Yeah.
As a salesperson to a client, what's the biggest sell you ever made?
So I'll use an example of an opportunity I was working on while I was managing a group of our sales reps at MoLo. So let's think this was during COVID in 2020. We're building out our sales group, and the organization was very sales heavy. So like everybody was selling. Andrew selling, Matt Vogrich is selling, Stafford Mathis, all of us, we co-founded the business. You're cold calling customers, you're sending emails, you just want to grow. And so I was like, man, you know what? I got a team and we're building up our book, but I still need to be sending out messages to customers and seeing who we can land, and had an opportunity to reach out to and start to build a relationship completely cold with a very large beverage manufacturer that had not ever worked with us, didn't really know who we were. And it was cool because the award that we got was a couple $1,000,000 early on, which, as you have these conversations with different brokers, there's a sliding scale of what you get: primary, contractual, spot business opportunity, things like that. But it's really cool to get, a multi-million-dollar award from a company during our first bid cycle, and then have a chance to really build that relationship and say, okay, now that we're inside your network, let's get a little bit more strategic, figure out what projects we can help you with and things of that nature. But that was in the midst of all the crazy madness that was going on during COVID. So, you're managing people in a remote capacity, and you're working through all these challenges of really coverage and capacity in general. And then, you got to find a way to still produce. And that was a lot of fun, because I think it taught me a lot about what was capable, even when there's a lot of pressure. So there's pressure internally from the people you're working with. There's pressure externally because capacity is hard to come by. You're trying to grow this organization, but like, you still got to grow revenue, man. You better stay in front of customers. Otherwise, you don't have a business. So that was fun. It taught me a lot.
And the proof's in the pudding. I mean, like you guys grow in 4 years, $0 to $600 million in top line revenue, which is, I even know how you even put that growth together. You have the sales side, you have the operations side, finance side. It must have been a little bit of a great circus inside of the place.
Totally. I liken it to, if you go and watch improv comedy or you watch a concert, you don't necessarily know what the performer is supposed to do, but you're there enjoying it. You're like, man, that was so good, right? And they probably go backstage, like, I messed up this line and I wasn't supposed to say this, but you just you roll with the punches, right? That's what brokerage is at a startup, because you want your customers to experience no service interruptions. And so it doesn't matter what's happening behind this curtain, how many drivers we have to call, how many things we have to figure out, put all stuff together. You just got to keep the plates spinning. And so, yes, it was rather chaotic, but you learn a lot.
Dude, make it up as you go. That's
totally.
How about the easiest sell you've ever done?
Okay, so during my first 10 days selling Cutco, I set up an appointment with my grandpa on my dad's side, and I go there, and my grandpa's super supportive. So I show up, and everybody that I did appointments with, I wouldn't let them rush me and say no, just tell me how much that costs, right? I'm I got to practice. I got to do the whole thing, right? So I go through the whole thing, and telling them about all the knives and all the stuff. And our managers always told us, start high. So when you start to offer pricing, this is probably 35 minutes into the presentation, start at the highest set, right? And the highest set was a set of, it's like flatware plus some pots and pans plus a set of knives. And so you start there. It's pretty expensive. Most people say no. Sometimes people say yes, right? So sometimes they do. So
Yeah.
I offer all these things, and my grandpa says no. And then I drop down to the next thing. It's a little bit smaller, and he says no. And then I go to this set called the Ultimate. And the Ultimate is the largest block set that they have. So it's got all the knives. I haven't sold an Ultimate yet. It's like this thing of lore. It's like the Great White Buffalo. It's called the Ultimate. And I'm like, all right, Grandpa, here you have the Ultimate. And da, 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 and it's $27.99. He's like, I'll take it. I was like, what? You'll take it. And so I was flabbergasted. But he was my grandpa. He wants to see me win. He wants to see me support. So it wasn't a hard sale, but it did teach me the lesson of like, if I would have started at a $600 or $700 set, he probably would have just said yes. And over time throughout my career, I just realized it's easier to go down than it is to go back up. Like you offer somebody something for $100, probably gonna get them to spend $1,000. So start at $1,000 and go down. And it was an easy sale though. He's my grandpa. It was easy.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So if you go on the opposite side, if you think about the hardest, most stressful, and I'm gonna merge a couple questions here. So think the most difficult, most stressful, most emotional, most draining sale, the sale that made you just rethink everything and wonder if you just popped out a head of gray hair, and then you're concerned it might have took years off your life. Just that sale. What was that sale? If you're looking backwards.
I have a lot of these because it's always the longer sales cycles and they stress you out the most because sometimes it's hard to tell if they're ever going to close because you get good indicators that things are moving in the right direction and then stalemate. And it might be radio silence for a bit and then you get some more good information and then boom, radio silence. So there's an opportunity that was with a rather large food service distribution style business. And it was one of the first times where you're really battling through a lot of red tape for contracting and then a lot of red tape for insurance requirements. And then you've got red tape for bid cycles. Oh, bid cycle doesn't make sense, right? We can't onboard you right now. We're in the middle of the bid and we're going to give the business to incumbents. So unfortunately, it's not an opportunity right now. And you start to develop these relationships at every level, planner level, director level, day-to-day people. You spent 12, 18 months hammering it, getting after it. Okay, cool. We finally got the contract signed. Oh, wait, there's this other thing they need you to go get. That's like an insurance certification. And then you sit down and you talk internally. Well, okay, does it make sense to spend the money on this particular type of insurance for this one niche customer? Like, do we think, is it going to be positive business? Do we think we actually get the business? What if we get the insurance and we don't get the business? And now we just have this contract. We spent, however much, 15, 20 grand on this insurance cert, and they don't want to onboard you. And it was back and forth month after month. And I think sometimes what makes it tough is you'll get people that will engage with you, but you don't advance the sale. So they won't be evasive. They'll respond to your emails, which is super encouraging, right? But you don't move the needle at all. So sometimes when people are a bit radio silent, you're like, shoot, at least like, I don't think they're leading me on for the opportunity because I don't know anything. I'm just kind of in the dark. So I need to figure out a way to entice them. But in this particular instance, they were collaborative, just really hard to get to the point where they say, yes, we will onboard you. And once we were able to onboard them and got the contract signed and got a first bid, started out spot business, moved over to contractual business, it felt like a weight was off my shoulders because it's one of those things that you talk about for a while, like, hey, how's that opportunity doing? And you kind of feel like a loser because you keep saying that it's close and it's not, or you don't know if it is. And I think that helped mature me as a sales rep and as a coach to understand there's just a lot of things sometimes that are outside of your control that you have to be able to work through. And in transportation, a lot of times it's timing more than it is the fit. And if the timing is off, you could be the best sales professional in the world. And I'm sorry about you. Like, good luck next RFP cycle. Sometimes it's just how it goes.
It's the same way in athletics, right? Like if you're going to make it big, you got to be good. Someone's got to like you. You got to be good at the right time. There's got to be timing outside of your control for something to happen above you to move into a position if you're a backup or what have you. And sometimes it can be the same way to get your first shot in sales. And certainly existing in that space of uncertainty is not comfortable at all.
No fun.
Is no fun.
No fun.
And those long sales cycles, I don't find a lot of fun in it, because it's just a lot of unknown and a lot of questioning what you're doing. So I want to ask you this about Journey, right? Have you kind of designed that to be a shorter sales cycle, an easier way to transact instead of?
That's a good question. I think there are going to be three types of sales cycles in this and in a lot of businesses. And if you're selling to all of them concurrently, you end up doing better. And so you have like quick transactional. So someone may reach out, they need help today. They're like, look, we're trying to find an executive level role, or we want to find experienced sales reps. And from their first outreach or my first message, we're maybe talking 24 hours from a contract being signed, right? Quick. Does that mean that, there's a ton of opportunity within the organization? Who knows? They might just need this one role, one off, and like that's all it is. Then there are opportunities where you go back and forth, and I call this like mid stage. It's not quite super long, but mid stage, you go back and forth. Maybe you redline the contract a little bit, and you get to the point where they're just a little bit more specific about who they decide to work with. And a lot of times, even in brokerage or in sales in general, not to say that quicker closes are bad, but the customers that I've seen personally in my career end up being the best long term typically took the longest to close because they knew exactly what they wanted, or they already had someone servicing those needs. So even if I was excellent, it didn't matter. Hey, we appreciate you, but I've already got two or three people that are doing the same thing. So there's not really value in bringing you on, even if you're the best of the best, right? I don't really see the value. So over time, provide value, stay in touch, build a relationship, and your time will come. So I think there are, even in this business, a couple different stages. Some people that are ready to rock, man. Hey, we need help now. Like, let's get in here and make this happen. Others takes a little bit longer. Others, for us, will probably be long term. We're maybe not ready for what they're trying to do today, and over time we mature as an organization and are a good fit for them.
That makes sense. It does. Just a long sales cycle and kind of that enterprise type of thing is something that I just never have gotten into. Like contracts, like red lines going back and forth is kind of one of my pet peeves in a lot of ways. It's like, let's just remove all the friction, worry about this, get in there as fast as we can, at least developing that relationship, and then move on from there, because I don't like
Totally.
slumps.
One thing that I noticed helped the best reps I've ever worked with, even if they were quote unquote enterprise sellers, so they're going after the largest of the large, would be to bucket your book of business and your prospects into short term, medium term, long term as you're selling, because you could be really, really good at selling to enterprise style customers that might take 12 to 18 months to close.
Mm-hmm.
But if in that 12 to 18 months, you have nothing to show for it, so you didn't close any transactional customers, right? You didn't close any market customers that can give you business immediately. It's hard to validate the body of work. So it's important to say, okay, these are my long-term targets and I'm selling to them as hard as I ever have, but I know it's going to be a year before they really reciprocate. Same time, I'm selling to mid or smaller accounts that are going to give us business today. If you're selling to all three of those segments concurrently, you're going to be able to close business.
You are, and that is important to do. You have to have wins today and tomorrow, but you have to focus in on the long term, the higher value business, definitely, and that avoids slumps. So I want to ask you, because I'm always interested, because some days I get up and it's like, man, I don't know if I'll ever make another sell again. And then that might disappear in 5 minutes, or it might not, but I'm a little bit neurotic anyway, so that's just me. So, have you ever had a really bad sales slump, or do you still get those even to this day?
Yeah, so I still get them to this day. I have had them in every position. So when I started in transportation, I was in carrier sales, and ebbs and flows there, right? You're pounding the phones, developing relationships, and you just might not hit that month with the right lanes. You might not have the right capacity for the type of freight the business is running. And I managed, battling through slumps in that. I've worked through slumps as a manager. So you're like coaching reps and trying to help them build their books, and you're stepping in to help with calls and just stuff like isn't closing. And one of the more memorable ones for me was during my time selling Cutco. I managed an office in Lincoln Park. So this was the summer of 2010. I was 20, going on 21, I think. Yeah, 20, going on 21. And I had 80 sales reps that did $110,000 in business over like a 3 month span, which was pretty cool, and a couple of receptionists to help manage the office. And it was a great learning experience. But there was a time during that where I ran out of money. So to run a branch office, you have to save money to be able to pay your receptionist and pay your rent. Like Vector's pretty deliberate about it. Like you can't go out to branch if you don't have the money in the bank. So did that, prepaid my rent, hired receptionists, and this was probably I opened up my branch in May, so this is probably mid to end of June. And I called my division manager. I'm like, "Yo, I ran out of money. Like, I've paid all my receptionists, and the office isn't quite cranking the way I thought it might be." So, when you're selling Cutco or when you're a manager, you only make money if you're producing or if the office is producing. And that was the worst slump I've ever been in. I'm like, man, I can't seem to coach reps to sell. I'm not knocking it out of the park on my own and individual sales calls. And my back was against the wall, and essentially didn't really have a choice but to go out and produce. And from that point on, the office did probably another 70,000 to close the summer out, and had a really big contest period during this like big sales contest that the organization has. But that was a slump. I thought I was gonna have to close my office. I'm like, man, this is crazy.
How'd
It's
you get
bad.
out of it? I mean, I know that you turned it
Yeah,
around, but is there some sort of internal strategy or external strategy to get out of
yeah.
it?
So did you guys see Zach Wilson play this weekend against the Jets, or not against the Jets, before the Jets, after they benched him like a billion times this year? Or if you guys happen to follow
I
football at all?
A
I
little bit.
Yeah,
I didn't see
I
the
try
game,
to
but I
follow it,
was
but I didn't
was
watch
yeah.
it.
just watching or
Okay,
on the phone, keeping track of stats,
yeah.
stuff, fantasy.
So he's got a quote out there right now. He told one of his teammates during the week, he said, "Man, I'm just going to go out there and play for you guys because what's the worst that could happen? They bench me again." And he played incredibly well. One of the best games he's ever played. And I feel like during that slump, I was putting way too much pressure on myself to perform and not enjoying this job that I had had fun doing the last 3 summers. I'm like, I love selling Cutco. I love coaching reps, right? It's so cool. But going out on this entrepreneurial venture, doing the stuff that you've never done, it was a lot of pressure. I'm like, man, I've got, a team that's expecting me to be able to, I'm paying them hourly, right? I got to have the money to pay their wages. And I need to be this leader to get them to where they want to be. And, they took a chance on us to have the summer job. And just put too much pressure on myself. And I was like, all right, man, just like go do what you know how to do. Like have fun, coach, get out there and sell. And after that, I think we had a way better summer, but I just took the pressure off a little bit.
I'm fascinated by this. From sports and baseball, and I'm sure you can relate to this as well. This whole idea of being an underdog. When your back's against the wall, there's no expectations. Nobody thinks you're going to be able to do anything. They say you're too small, you're not talented enough, you're going to get crushed by XYZ, and you have nothing to lose. So you can just shove off the expectations, shove off the I need to achieve XYZ results, and you're just like, let's see what happens. And that mentality is amazing to me because I feel like if you can maintain that mentality even when you're the favorite, if you can still kind of believe you're the underdog or act that way, it sets you up for so much success. So um, it's great stuff. I know we're coming kind of close to time here, but what is the sale that you learned the most from? What sale taught you the most?
I would say during COVID, there were 3 or 4 enterprise sales cycles I worked through with accounts that I was working on and worked through with sales reps on the team. And each of those taught me something different. So, one of those enterprise sales cycles taught me patience and how to provide value to an account without actually transacting with them. So, you can only tell someone we're the best at this, or here's what we service well, or blah, 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 so many times before it just falls on deaf ears. And if you don't have a chance to actually execute freight, I don't know, man. Like it's not that important to them, right? So how do I provide value to this person so they don't tune me out and they will listen when the right time comes? So looking for good market data, relevant information to what it looks like for them to do their job and their seed, what it looks like for them to execute freight challenges they may be working through. It just made me think more strategically, and then you use that information because most of your sales reps are in somewhat of a battle with a similar account. Like, okay, here's what worked for this person, got us through contracting, got us an invite to an RFP. Have we approached it in this manner? Some other things I think we worked through, which was a lot of fun, not at the time, but long term. Um, COVID threw a wrench in capacity. And if you guys remember early, probably February to March of 2021, Texas froze over. It was really, really cold, and that created a lot of supply chain challenges. And so, one of the more important conversations that I've had during that time was open, transparent communication on the challenges we're working through and how to best get through this as two parties, right? So, hey, everything's frozen over, right? Trucks aren't moving. It's not that I don't want to move the freight. It's that the capacity isn't available for us to execute it, right? So what do we need to do to put ourselves in position to continue to execute for you? Are there ways for us to adjust these shipments? Are there ways for us to work around availability? Can we pull shipments from other markets that aren't just completely frozen over? So you start to think more creatively. And I think it challenged me and the reps that I was working with to have better, more transparent communication around let's work on this together. But I don't know if I'd ever matured to that point. You're just like, we'll figure it out, right? And it's like sometimes like you kind of can't figure it out. You need to have like tough conversations, but people respect that. And so working through those with these really, really big customers with really, really high expectations is scary. Like I was, man, they are going to rip us, right? Maybe this call doesn't go as well as I thought it might. And I remember incredible conversations hopping off like, was that the best call we ever had, right? Like, are we better now than we were before? And so stuff like that, when it's really, really tough, is typically what you learn the most from.
It is, and providing solutions where there's not really a good solution there's not really the optimal outcome, and you just have to be brutally honest. People do respect that because,
Yeah,
they're not going to be able to walk down the street and find someone who can fulfill that because
totally.
it was a tough market. It definitely was. What's your most memorable sell? What was the one today? And you can use the sell of MoLo on this one. I'll let you do that.
No, so I mean, obviously, incredible opportunity to have a chance to grow a business from zero. I remember sitting in our first office, which was on Hubbard and Dearborn in River North. It was above a bar that is now closed. It is a different place, but the floor used to rattle on like Thursdays, and it's just the most startup of startup offices ever. It was dusty. We shared a bathroom with a marketing company because it's like the shared office space. And you come to the office every day and you're like, yo, like, are we really doing this? Like, are people like buying what we're selling? And there's 3 of us at first, and then you go from 3 to 6, and then from 6 to like 18, and now you're starting to bring on people who they're like pretty good at their jobs. They left really good companies to come here and work with us. So like, we better figure this out, right? Like we got to, make sure this thing is working. And so to see an organization battle through those ups and downs, I remember we grew so quickly in the summer of 2018 that we had to rent a WeWork for a month because we didn't want to stop hiring. So we had about a 2,500 square foot office, and then we packed it with as many people as we could. I think it was 25 or 26 people. And our new office was going to be ready August of 2018. So we rented a WeWork for the month of July, and we would interview people first in our little office. And then we'd walk down the stairs and go around the corner to the WeWork. Customer team sat in the WeWork. The carrier team sat in the first office on Hubbard. And it was so crazy. But people probably look at the organization today and go, oh my gosh, right? So developed, so structured, all these incredible contributors, all these things started from the bottom. It was so crazy and so much fun. So having an opportunity to build something from scratch and work with amazing people and see them grow and flourish and, get to the point where an organization like ArcBest is interested in acquiring us, an incredible experience.
That's
That is
awesome.
incredible.
Yeah.
It's incredible, and that's how all businesses start, and it's the fun of it. And I hope you have the same amount of excitement and fun starting journey as
Thank
well,
you.
and watching that grow, because I think that's very addictive.
It
I think
is, man.
starting something and growing it is just addictive.
I'll tell you, during my travels, so I left the States June 15th. I got back September 13th. So I spent 87 days in Europe, almost a maximum time on your tourist visa. The most you can spend is 90. So I gave myself a 3-day buffer in case travel got weird. And the first month, it took a while to just unwind because I was so used to working and grinding, high school sports and academics, and you play ball in college, you start your career, start working on MoLo. Dude, we're going all the time. I can't remember the last time I didn't have anything to do. So I was like, okay, you can chill. This is nice. So it took a while to kind of unwind. But towards the end of the trip, probably like mid-August, I was like, dude, I'm ready to go home. Like, not that I don't enjoy this, but I want to get to work. Like I want to go build something. And I haven't been this excited in quite some time, have an opportunity to work with some incredible people on the team that I've known for years, that I've seen them do great work. And so being able to work closely with them today and build this organization is honestly the coolest thing ever. And I'm excited to go create amazing opportunities. And, maybe we can have another conversation in a few years about where the team's sitting. So I'm excited.
Yeah, definitely.
It's awesome. It's awesome. So you're on this beach. You got your tequila lavender latte combo with a foot in the water and a foot in the city. Any final thoughts as you're sipping your beverage and watching the waves come in?
Yes. Final thoughts would be have confidence in yourself, regardless of the lack of experience or the things you need to go learn. You're a lot more capable than what you might give yourself credit to. And, you have to take those risks early on to develop the skill set to go and succeed. And if you take that with you and everything that you want to attack, you kind of understand that, man, I might not be the best at this today, but if I'm willing to come back every single day with the same level of enthusiasm, same passion, same intensity, eventually I will figure it out. And so that's something that I would love to be able to tell a younger version of myself, love to be able to look back at as I go. And there's so much more that I need to learn about recruiting and, developing as an individual and as a leader. Just say, hey man, like you got to be okay with the fact that you might not be excellent today, but if you want to do well, you got to keep coming back and battling at it. So that's the stuff that I think differentiates people that get to where they want to be, or those that kind of talk about it. So I want to be able to remind myself of that and give that to other people.
Will
Great advice.
Jenkins, thanks for your time today, sir. It's been a pleasure being the first last sale.
Let's
We'll play on
go.
words there. So, yes, great conversation. Wish you all the best in your new journey with Journey.
Let's
And
go.
yeah, look forward to continuing the conversation at another time.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate being the first guest, and this was a really fun conversation. So thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome.